Hey everyone, Happy New Year. Here we are, 2022.
22.
I know for myself, I didn't know if we'd ever get here with all the craziness, but we are here and we're excited for a new year. Exciting times we're living in, right?
That's right.
And before we get going, this is our first installment of 2022 of the Under the Hood series where we have just healthy discussions. We're not trying to do like total, complete teachings. We're trying to have good discussions about what's important to the Lord, what's biblical, all the good things that we should be consumed with. But what we'd also like to know is, what do you guys want to hear discussions about?
Right.
So we haven't really had an ability to take a lot of feedback. So if you could like comment on the Facebook link to our Under the Hood when you see this, throw us some ideas of stuff that you are actually interested in having conversation about, not just, trying to fill space, like something that you legitimately want to know about that we could maybe facilitate some discussions. I think you'll see some new faces.
Yeah.
And one of the things we're doing today is we're actually flipping the roles.
Ooh.
Normally, Noah's doing the intro and asking the questions, trying to trip me up. Not really, but Noah is really, passionate about some things that he leads our ministry in, one being worship and the other being prayer. And so I want to just throw out a couple questions and have him be able to share his heart. Mm-hmm. And one of the questions, kind of like when we hit the Halloween topic is why does Jesus label the church as a house of prayer? Like why is that why does he say something like that? What's the crux of what do you think he's trying to say?
For me, like reading that and kind of experiencing it a lot in the last couple of years, just like really making prayer like a big thing is, I think because prayer is so pure in its sense. Like when you are truly praying to God, it's the most pure connection, at least I've found, with him. Like it's just, you're simply talking to the Lord, like you're communing with him, you're spending time, you're being there. And so I think all these other things like worship and healing and feeding the poor and all these things that we see being a big part of the church, being a big part of God's house, those can easily become works or acts. But for me, prayer is just simply communing with him, like just spending time with Jesus and loving on him and loving the Holy Spirit and loving the Father and actually like learning about him and honoring him, really, I think is, I don't know if that's the why he said that, my Father's house would be a house of prayer, but to me, I find that prayer is very hard to get away from a purity sense when you're just spending time with the Lord, so I don't know, that would probably be for me.
Well, I mean, like, what was the context? When Jesus said that, what was the thing he was really trying to address?
Well, I mean, he was addressing some messed up stuff in the church at that point.
So what was I mean, not the details per se, but what was messed up?
I think like they were taking advantage of people in the lobby of the church, basically, right? They were like basically charging people they were upselling these, animals that they had to go and sacrifice for. So I think that I think Jesus had some righteous anger in him in that moment, and he was like, whoa, you guys are taking advantage of my people. You guys are making this into a den of robbers, is what he says, but you're making this into like a place where you're just trying to like make money off this. This is becoming like a monetary value thing for you, So I think he was trying to take that away. He was trying to say, this is supposed to be a house of prayer, of communion with my Father,
So like maybe prayer being like both talking and listening to spending the time. You think that maybe that restores when we can experience God's heart, it restores the purity of his desire of what happens in the church? I mean, it's hard, right? Because Jesus is addressing something specific, but yet the statement he makes is something that is a foundational thing, even in his anger of what happened.
Right.
That's always interesting. Like, so like, when I talk to people and they're on a church journey, they're like, what are you looking for? They're like, oh, well, the best kids ministry.
Right.
Or, we want a rockin' band and the worship team. Like, and look, some of that, I mean, I value those things. Sure. But I guess, so where does prayer seed itself into our lives so that our priorities line up?
So this is the thing that really has been like kind of revolutionary to me is like, making him the one thing, making him the center, even like we look into like Revelation and in Chronicles where it talks about heaven and David's tent, or whatever. The whole primary thing was they made God's presence and they made God the center. And I think that's what prayer does, is it literally makes God the center. Now, even if we were praying in the sense of I'm asking God for help with the situation that I need really help with, I'm still making him the center because I'm saying, Lord, I need you. Or if I'm simply entering in with thanksgiving or whatever it may be, we're actually just looking straight to him. And so I think sometimes we can get into this place where we're looking for something that fulfills our desire. But I think what prayer does is it aligns our hearts to say, Lord, I actually want what you desire. I want what you desire, and he desires us. Sure. And we should want to desire him, My hunger and my thirst, if I'm not daily in prayer, it dwindles very quickly. If I'm daily in prayer and daily spending time communing with him, I find that my desire becomes him because I realize that that's what he wants, So yeah, that's probably a big thing for me. And I think a big thing is like prayer is actually sometimes, most of the time, boring. At least what I've been learning is that a lot of time it becomes very boring. And I was thinking about Psalm 46, where it says, "Be still and know that I am Lord, I'm God." And I think I know that in my head, that I know in my head that he's God, and I know I need to be still. But when I actually practice doing it, like on Wednesdays when we do the prayer room, and I spend 2 hours every Wednesday, just no agenda besides ministering to him, honoring him, looking at him, thanking him, it becomes from knowing he's God and becomes to knowing. Like I begin to actually live like he is God. Like, well, you said this, God. You said this in your word. I'm going to stand on that instead, Instead of becoming just knowledge, it becomes actually a way of life, So that's something that I've been kind of learning lately. But yeah, I think that when we make God the center of it all, which should be the goal, right? It's his house.
Sure.
It's his house, so it should be.
Well, again, it's the value system, right? Like
right.
We can want a lot of things.
Sure, yeah.
And that doesn't mean that they're not important, but is our value system lined up with the same as God's?
Yeah.
That's a heartfelt question.
Yeah.
And I think for me, when I go into prayer, and I struggle more with the setting certain time aside, which is why during the fast, the weekly prayer rooms were awesome.
Right.
It was a new thing for me to set that time. Normally, I'm filling my day when I have space in some sort of prayer, whether I'm praying in the Spirit or I'm listening for the Lord on something that's going on, is I need to understand his value system. Because if I try and just operate in my value system, and probably usually, more than likely, I'm doing that often,
right,
then I don't get to see the benefits of the kingdom really fully live itself out unless I let God rearrange my priorities.
Yeah.
But talk about the prayer room a little bit, because I think that's a little misunderstood.
Yeah.
Because you do it weekly, have been for, going on a couple of years, maybe?
2 years.
2 years, yeah. But we did them during our corporate fast for like Monday through Friday for an hour. And I just didn't see a lot of people there. And I wonder if it's because they don't understand what your heart is for that time.
Sure. Yeah, so the prayer room for me, I think there's actually the same purpose exists between corporate worship and the prayer room, but the avenue looks very different. So the purpose for corporate worship, like on a Sunday morning or worship night, is to minister to the Lord, and the purpose of a prayer room is to minister to the Lord. So just honor him, make sure that we're looking at him, we're making sure that he's the one that we're focusing on in the room. We're not looking at ourselves, we're looking at him. But the prayer room, the avenue looks a little different. The avenue looks more like it's much more a personal expression. So I think something that I was talking to one of the people that is really committed to the prayer room is the Padulas. And I was talking to Charlene, love you, Charlene. And she was telling me about how she'll even plan out what she's gonna do. So she's like, hey, I'm gonna come in, I'm gonna write some curriculum for Life Kids, or I'm gonna go through my journal or do some things like this. And I think the purpose of the prayer room is to come in and to maybe have an agenda with the Lord and say, Lord, I'm gonna come in, I'm gonna honor you, but I'm going to paint while I'm here because maybe you're an artist, or I'm going to write poetry, or I'm going to read the Psalms, or I'm going to do this, or I'm just going to sit there and actually be completely still. That has helped me. And even the last maybe 2 or 3 weeks that we've done Wednesdays, I haven't even played. We put on instrumental music on, and I've just been one of the people sitting in the seats. And I've learned that like really quickly I run out of things to say to the Lord.
Sure.
And in that moment, instead of trying to just fill it up with things to do, if I'm intentional, I can say, okay, Lord, I want to hear your voice. I want you to speak, and I want to be listening. And so just listening. So yeah, I think the avenue looks very different. And I've heard actually quite a bit of people say like, well, it's just not for me. That's not for me. And I think that can actually be a true statement. But my thing is, I think the Lord values this. And so if we want to value what the Lord values, which we talked about, making him the center, if this is his house, what he enjoys, what he likes should be our primary focus, not what we enjoy, what we like. And through that, we'll be blessed. I have been in a lot of areas. And so I actually wanted to throw a couple practicals out, things that I've learned over the last 2 years in the prayer room to help people so that if you come to the prayer room or you stumble up, you walk in on a Wednesday and you realize what's going on and you want to sit down, you can have some things that you could maybe enter in. So the first thing, Paul talks in 1 Corinthians 14 about praying in the Spirit and then praying in your understanding, sing in the Spirit and then sing in your understanding. And I don't know if when he wrote that, if he meant that to be an order, but I was like, probably about a year ago, I was like, I want to test this and see if this is actually beneficial if I do this in an order. And so what I did was I would, every time I enter into a prayer room or a prayer time with the Lord or a prayer set or a worship set or any time, I always begin with praying in the Spirit. And what I found is the prayers of understanding, so the prayers that come out of my mind and things like that in my heart, after I pray in the Spirit, are way more aligned with what God's doing in the room, with way more aligned with what God wants to do. And so I would encourage you, if you pray in the Spirit or if you sing in the Spirit, come in, maybe just set a timer for 15 minutes, 10 minutes, or don't, and just do it and just pray and just get yourself in the Spirit and then begin to pray in understanding. The second thing that I've been doing, and this is kind of like an order that I've been kind of learning that works for me and it might work for you, is thanksgiving and praise. It says to enter into his courts with thanksgiving and praise. Practical, right? We do it in our corporate prayer times almost every week. We just say, we're going to start with Thanksgiving and see where this goes. We do that in worship too. I don't know if you guys have noticed, but like Sunday morning worship, we've been really changing to, we almost start every set with Thanksgiving. Even if it's not a song, we start with just singing thank you or saying thank you to him. So that's practical. And then Psalm 1, it talks about, blessed is, I'll paraphrase a little bit, but it says, blessed is the man whose delight is in the law of the Lord, and he meditates on it day and night. And he's talking, when I looked up what law meant, it was talking about the Torah back, like, the first 5 books of the Bible. But I think this is huge, is if you don't know, let's say you don't know how to pray in the Spirit, and you don't know how to even pray that well, you're like, I don't understand this concept of prayer. Go to the Bible and use the Bible as a tool. Jesus prays a bunch in the Bible, so you could literally read a prayer of Jesus. You could go to the Psalms and take a psalm of David and begin to make it a prayer, like Psalm 23, the Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. Just start there. Lord, you're my shepherd, I shall not want. Make it personal,
Sure.
So these are some like practical things that I've learned that lead me into the prayer room. And then don't be afraid of boredom. I heard Corey Russell said this. He said, boredom is the doorway into fascination. This was something that he said that I've been chewing on. And he was saying, like, don't be afraid of getting to a place in the prayer room where you're, 45 minutes in, you're like, I'm just straight up bored. I don't know what to do. He's like, acknowledge the fact that you're bored and then say, I'm going to press in even more. I'm going to press into you, Lord. I'm going to continue. I'm going to agree with what you're doing in the room. So those are some things that I've learned of the last probably 2 years that the Lord's been walking with me. And some of those are really practical things that could help out.
Good, right?
Yeah,
practical.
help out.
You have to start somewhere, right? Because otherwise, we're just talking in spiritual Christianese,
right?
And people are like, "I need help getting there."
Sure.
For me, the prayer rooms that we did during the fast, I try and go on your Wednesday ones, but I often have meetings.
Sure.
And so these were set aside, and I started, like you said, I started in the Word. I asked the Holy Spirit to show me where could I start reading,
Yeah.
where it would just focus my heart.
Yeah.
And believe it or not, he led me to Ezekiel, and I was like, whoa, I didn't think I'd be in there during this time. But
Yeah.
it taught me a lot. But it was a friend in the church who is, got a prophetic, gifting. He said, I think in this time, God just wants us to take the opportunity to just be with him instead of being specific.
Mm.
So I tried that, as far as like, I'm usually like, God, I'm seeking you for this, or I need you in this.
Yeah.
And I just said, I'm going to make this a priority just to be with you.
Yeah.
I focused myself on the Word a little bit to give me my heart a context. And then I just was still, and like you said in Psalm 46, be still and know that I am God. Well, the way to know is to let him do what he wants to do.
Yeah.
And in the quietness,
Wow.
things that I was concerned about in my heart that I wasn't asking him about, that he already knew about, he actually shattered it in my heart.
Wow.
Because I gave him the opportunity to be God
Yeah.
at the simplest level. So is the prayer room the fix for everything?
Yeah, no.
No, but it's
No.
a practical place to build upon where your faith sits,
Yeah.
because there's always a deeper place.
Yeah.
So my last question, and this has been a good conversation,
Yeah.
is Wednesday during the day, it's like 11 to 1. Like,
Yeah.
what if people, they work during the day?
Yeah.
Like, how do they partake in it?
Yeah, so one thing that when I started the prayer room, I felt like the Lord he said two things to me. And the first one was stream it. And the second one was numbers don't matter. That's what he said to me. And I'm thankful that he's told me the numbers don't matter, because there's been many weeks where it's just me and him in the room. And really he was saying, this is about you connecting with me. Like, it's successful if you minister to me, not if
Sure.
1,000 people show up, right?
Sure, right.
But even through the last 2 weeks where we had the prayer rooms at night, and I was talking with you a little bit about it, and I was like, we were like, hey, I wonder if moving it to night, and I was like, that was the one thing that I felt like the Lord shifted in the new year, was move it to a PM set. And also he said, stop streaming it, which was interesting, because he said originally 2 years ago to start it and then now to stop. So I actually really do think, I'm praying about it, and I want to, talk with you guys about a good date that would work, like, a night of the week. But yeah, I definitely think I want to make this more accessible. I know a lot of people work, and I've talked to actually quite a few brothers and sisters who are like, I can't because of my job, and
Sure.
I would want to.
Sure.
So, yeah, that'd be...
I think that, when we look at what we want to do, our hearts, and how we serve the Lord in a church sense,
Yeah.
is we want to encourage and exhort people to grow in their faith and their walk with the Lord. But at what point are we actually just enabling complacency?
Yeah.
That becomes a problem.
Sure.
So maybe this shift, gives more of an opportunity. And by pulling the stream, it makes it like, hey, we got to be deliberate about doing these kinds of things with
For
the
sure.
Lord.
For sure. Yeah.
All right. Well, hey, hope you enjoyed that discussion. Very definitely more on a specific topic.
Sure.
That's something that happens here at Life. If you don't have a home church and you're looking to connect with a place that just desires to bring God the offering that blesses his heart and grow in your faith, join us on Sunday mornings at 8:20 and 10:30 here at Saratoga Abundant Life. If you don't have the ability to enter into a prayer room at your church, just come and take part with us in the prayer room. Not to change churches, but to maybe experience something that you could bring back to your church.
Totally.
That's our heart for the city. We don't consider ourselves exclusive. We look at ourselves as a part of the church of Saratoga, and we're joined by a lot of great brothers and sisters who lead churches as well. So God bless you guys. We hope that this helps you, encourages you, and we'll see you next time.